Hello, I'm Ruby Burrito, and welcome to today's video. We are less than a week away from the Expansion 6 announcement, which is going to be coming on Tuesday. So I wanted to take some time to talk about the post from Josh Davis regarding the lessons learned from Janther Wilds and Soto. Primarily, this is going to be about Janther Wilds, but I do think the feedback from Soto does play a factor in here. We've had 2 expansions so far in this content form, which is 1 expansion a year. We learned from this about how the dev team is taking that feedback and strategizing for the future and what all of this means for the future of Guild Wars 2. So first, we're going to go through this post. This is the post that I'm talking about. This was posted on Tuesday, July 8th. And I'm not going to read this line for line, but I am going to try to give you guys some highlights before I dive into what I think is kind of the takeaways of everything and how it's going to impact us in Expac 6. So he starts by reflecting on Janther Wilds and how it's a transition from the global Elder Dragon crisis to a political coexistence with all the groups in Tyria. He mentions the addition of spears, the new raid wing, convergences, fractals, homesteads, all the many rewards and reworked systems that we've gotten over the last year. So he touches on all that and how ArenaNet has been putting in an effort to make those changes, include new things in the game, and how a lot of that has been really successful. The first big thing that he touches on here is going to be finding the right rhythm, so finding the pacing. So they had discussions on whether or not the pace was good. It's a simple way to put it, but what really has been the biggest feedback is that when you go and you play the first, second, and third quarterly updates after the expansion, they feel like they don't have enough depth. They're not very long, and so they're going to change this. They're actually not going to have story in the first quarterly update, and we will have then story in the second and third, and we'll have the map expansion from there. Next is a section on streamlining all the systems. This goes from daily rewards to raids and strikes to mount acquisition, but they've been working on kind of combining things and bringing things together so that we actually can utilize all of these old systems. They're trying to break the never-ending cycle of just adding new systems to the game. And I think that they've been doing a good job of that. I think the Wizard's Vault is a really good addition to the daily system, but I know that they're going to continue to do this. They do mention that they're making changes that are not necessarily headline grabbing, but they are important for supporting the population in the game. The next is going to be the biggest. So new tricks for every trade here. We're getting elite specializations. If you've been paying attention to their posts on Instagram is where I see them. They've been posting the icons of the elite specs that we're getting. And I believe we currently have 7 of the 9. And we're not going to get weapons, but we are going to get the utility skills, the traits, and everything that we would normally expect from a new elite spec. Additionally, in the Challenging the Challengers, they talk about how raids and strikes are going to be unifying in the next Expac. That's going to be UI, rewards, all of that system is going to be kind of combining. And at the end here, we see what comes next. We have this little, mostly finished now. We have the Return to Secrets of the Obscure events, I believe, right now. And then World v World Rush bonus event, which will be coming, which is going to be awesome. And then the PvP Rush beta event, I actually don't know for sure if I'm going to play that, but not the point. We have Festival of the Four Winds. And then in July, like I said, we're getting this announcement for the expansion. And then October is going to be when the Expac 6 drops instead of August, like the last few had been. And then we actually get a sneak peek, which I shared previously on the last Blackline update video that I did. We have a Paragon here and a Ritualist. If you're not familiar with those two, a Paragon came from the Nightfall campaign in Guild Wars 1, and a Ritualist came from the Factions campaign. Paragon was largely, they used spears, and they largely interacted with shouts, and they had Ritualists, which had spirits, and they instructed spirits. So a Necromancer makes the most sense, because right now you have minions. The only way that I feel you can properly integrate that in is going to be with a spirit system with the Necromancer. And then the Paragon, to me, looks like it's going to be Warrior. It fits best with Warrior. You have a lot of shouts on Warrior already, so it makes the most sense for me for that to be there. We can go back and take a look at some of these beautiful pieces of art that they tossed in here. So you get a homestead here. You have a fight with one of the Titans. We already talked about these. And then if we go here, I love this one with the Wildcat Warclaw sitting in the lap of this character here and a Coden in the background. Homestead. These are a lot of Janthier Wilds art that we have seen. So there's a lot of information in here that I think is important. So Tyria is ever expanding. We don't really know too much. We haven't gotten any story teasers that I'm aware of. I may have missed them, of where this is going to be. I'm excited to find out, but I think the elite specs is a really good spot to start from. So I'm sitting on a Revenant here. Revenant came out with Heart of Thorns. It was a huge selling point for the first expansion of the game, and that expansion also gave us the first elite specs. Right now we have 3 elite specs for every profession: Herald, Heart of Thorns, Renegade, Path of Fire, Vindicator, End of Dragons. And that would be the same for each of the other professions that we have. And one of the things that I think they learned, and while they did say that they couldn't do elite specs forever, I think they learned that elite specs do sell expansions. They do get people in the game. The amount of playtime that they're going to get out of these expansions, I think, is huge. I don't think they realized how it was going to impact the game to have the first expansions without them. I do think it would be healthy if they continue along with Guild Wars 2 for the foreseeable future. I do think it would be healthy to kind of go every other. I don't know that they're going to be able to just pump out elite specs every year for the rest of this game's life. But I do think that getting a new one only 3 years after the last one is a pretty good pace. We did have 2 in between. I know people were craving them, but if you take a break, you can also introduce new weapons, which is another plus, because they're not adding new weapons with this elite spec. So I do think it's a really good balance. I do think that's also part of why we're not getting the expansion until October, because they need to do all that polish. It is a lot for them to do it, and maybe we're getting an additional map. There's a ton of different places that we could go. We know we have the Tyrian Alliance. There's a ton of places to fill in here. We know down in Cantha, there's a huge amount that we could explore down in Cantha. Even Central Tyria has a lot of space in the Woodland Cascades, the Maguma Waste. We already did touch a little bit on them with Janthier Wilds, and we have this over here at the Horn of Maguma. But this to the east feels like it's been expanded. So actually, I can say for certain that it's been expanded, and I know that people have been clamoring for more Char or Blood Legion homelands. So it'll be very interesting to see where they go with it. But based off of the elite specs, it's kind of hard to say because, like I said, the Paragon came with Nightfall, which was this region, but the Ritualist came here. So I could make a prediction based off of the 2 elite specs that it looks like we are confirmed to get. We're going to get content in Cantha and Alona. I think that's a fair assumption based off of what we've seen. Like I said, these 2 down at the bottom, Paragon was Nightfall, Ritualist was factions. I do think that it could be an inkling. It could be completely unrelated, but I like the idea of going back to those 2 areas. I think it's going to be really nice to go back to these places. Now that we're done talking about specifically what the post said, I do want to make a couple other notes. My first one was about the elite specs driving more sales. I do think that's going to be really healthy for the game. You're going to see more new players. You're going to see more old players that may have taken a break from the game. I think it's going to be really good for everybody coming back and having a healthy population. Now, I think that showing this commitment is going to be huge for the player base as well. Them saying, hey, we are listening to what you're saying. We are going to make changes, and maybe this next one's not going to be perfect, but we hope it's going to be better. I think that's the right direction, especially when you have an annual pace for the expansions, because you need people to have a hankering for buying an expansion every year. They're not super expensive, but you need people to want to buy those expansions, or you're not going to be able to continue your pace. So I think it's really good that they're going to continue to listen to everybody. They did after Seekers of the Obscure. I think they learned a lot and they applied a good amount for Janther Wilds, but I do think that there are for sure some more improvements to be made. And the fact that they are delaying until October also shows a dedication to the quality of the content that they're putting out. They clearly are doing that because they want to give themselves enough time to put out a good expansion and not have the same kind of feedback that they did with Janther Wilds. Finally, there's two more things I want to talk about. I shouldn't say finally. With the streamlining of old things like the strikes and raids coming together, I think that's really, really healthy for the game, because it can be really confusing when you're a new player and you're trying to figure out how to interact with these different systems. And you're like, why do I care about strikes? Why do I care about raids? What's the point? What am I doing? And the final question that I have is, are they going to make it easier for people to get raid legendary armor? Because if they're connecting the rewards, I don't know if that's going to change the achievement that we have. So if you go to Envoy Armor, this is the achievement, and this is the second achievement that you need in order to complete your precursors. And I'm going to assume that they're not making it more accessible, but it bears the question of, if you complete these, the 2 Envoy Armor achievements, and you get your first set of legendary precursor armor, do they then make it easier for you to craft the subsequent precursor sets? So those are kind of my thoughts. I think it's a good direction for the game. I think it's a good direction for the company. I'm really excited for the Expac news. I will be making a video next week talking about it. If you guys want to hear my thoughts on everything that we talk about, everything that they announce, I will be putting that out maybe Wednesday, depending on how much information they give us, because it might take a while to get through everything. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys supporting the channel over the last couple years, and hopefully we can continue to make some good content, and we will see you guys in the next one. Feel free to hit that subscribe button to continue to support the channel. Otherwise, let me know your thoughts down below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.